Not all stress is bad. That's something that you're going to hear today, and it might change how you think about your own nervous system completely. In this episode, we're diving into conscious connected breathwork and what it actually is, how it works on the brain and the body, and why your breath might be the most powerful tool that you're not using. We're talking about the difference between little t and big T trauma, the stress bucket that fills up over decades until the small thing tips it into overwhelm, and how something so simple as 5 minutes a day can start to shift your capacity to handle stress. Joining me today is Megan Ashton, founder of Unity Breathwork and a leading advocate for raising safety standards in the breathwork industry. Her own healing journey through trauma, bulimia, and alcohol dependency led her to conscious connected breathwork. And she spent the last decade helping others access its power for healing, for release, and reconnection. So let's get into it. Ever wonder what the hell is happening with your hormones? I'm Kate Nagai, certified women's hormone health practitioner and cycle syncing strategist, and this is What the Hormones, where we decode PMS, perimenopause, burnout, and the chaos of midlife with real talk and real strategies. Whether you're here for hormone insights, expert conversations, or just need to know you're not alone in this, know that you're in the right place. So let's cut through that confusion and jump into this week's episode. Welcome back to What the Hormones. This week, I am so excited because we have Megan Ashton joining us. And Megan is the founder of Unity Breathwork, and she uses a technique called conscious connected breathwork. And I'm really excited to dive into this conversation around nervous system, around breathwork, and how we can use it as women, especially in midlife when things feel a little overwhelming. So, welcome, Megan, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Kate. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
So, tell me a little bit, what is connected or conscious connected breathwork?
Yeah, I would love to talk about that because I think the word breathwork now can mean a thousand different things. So it's really confusing when you just call something breathwork and you don't know what is what and what's the conscious connected breathwork. And so conscious connected breathwork is actually my main focus, my life's passion, my purpose. And it's a breathing technique where there's no pause between the inhale and exhale. And it's usually done for an extended duration. So usually at least 20 or 30 minutes, ideally an hour, lying down, eyes closed, and guided by a trained facilitator. And there's usually music. And what happens is when you keep the breath connected and deep into the belly, you actually create a bunch of changes physiologically. And it also leads to a redistribution of blood in the brain. So the prefrontal cortex, which is like the brain's CEO and in charge of all of our executive functions, gets a bit less oxygen. And that's kind of also where the ego resides and maintains its control and says things like, I can't feel this feeling right now. I can't do this. And I can't cry in front of people, and does all of that stuff. So when the ego starts to soften and lose its control, the amygdala, which is responsible for our emotions and our fear, it actually gets more energy and more oxygen. So a lot of repressed feelings can finally come to the surface to be felt, to be processed, and to be released. The hippocampus also gets more oxygen and blood, and that's our memory part of the brain. And so old memories can come up for processing. And what I love so much about it is it just puts us in touch with our body's inner healer and our own inner intelligence. And I really believe the breath is our own medicine. It's our direct pathway to our nervous system. We're living in such a inherently high stress society. Just waking up to an alarm is stressful for our nervous system. And with the breath, that's the one way that we can actually consciously control our nervous system. And with conscious connected breath work, is such a deep, deep practice because it actually changes your consciousness. You go into a non-ordinary state of consciousness, very similar to doing, maybe ketamine or psilocybin in a therapeutic setting, but it's your own medicine. So it's very empowering because it teaches us that what we need is within us and that we are our own healers. And in this altered state, people gain access to so many things. Sometimes it's like just life-changing insights. Other times they go back to a trauma, but finally get to process that stuck energy and release it. Other times they just feel a bunch of tension in their body, or old physical injuries start to get more intense. They feel energy there and then it feels better afterwards. Anything can happen in these sessions. And that's one of the reasons that I love it so much, because I'm always on my toes. You never know what to expect. But because it's guided by each person's own inner intelligence, they always get exactly what they need. And sometimes it's more subtle, and other times it can actually be life-changing in just 1 hour. And people can just walk away feeling like they've processed a lifetime of stress that they've been carrying around, so that after that, they can move through the world in a more flowy way with less daily stress and anxiety to better handle the daily stressors that we're all subjected to. And that was a bit long-winded, but that's
No,
kind of what it is.
I love it. I like that well, I don't know if I like, it was interesting that you said that there's no break. It's the inhale and then the exhale, because so many practices that we do get into are teaching us of holding that space of emptiness, right? And so a part of my
Mhm.
brain was like, can I do that? I don't know if I can do that.
And actually, I teach everyone that before I put them in the session. It's a part of the journey is that your ego and your brain's going to tell you, I can't do this for a whole hour. It's also done through the mouth. So it's gonna be like, I can't breathe through my mouth for a whole hour. I can't keep it connected. This isn't going to work. This is annoying. When's it going to be over? And that's part of it. That's the first 10 or 15 minutes. And if you just recognize, okay, this is the resistance that my facilitator warned me about. She said to just keep connected on the breath. After that, that's when all of the shifts start to happen in the brain. And then you go into a timeless state. So an hour of breathing sounds overwhelming for most. For me, it did.
Yeah.
But it goes by so fast after that initial 10 or 15 minutes of resistance. Because it's kind of like, everyone's been in a flow state where you're doing something you love so much and suddenly the time's just flown by.
Mhm.
And that's how it is. You're in this flow state where you have no recognition of time. And by the end, half of my breathers don't want to come back to normal breath. So in the beginning, I'm like, guys, keep it connected, breathe more. And in the end, they're like, Megan, we just want to stay here. Don't make us come back.
I love it. Um, so how did you land into this? Because like it's not like
Yeah.
I
It's
always
I
joke like, when I was in high school, it was like, I'm gonna be a hormone educator. It was never on the bucket list.
no.
It's right up there with
Yeah.
firefighter, right?
It wasn't that wasn't what your 6-year-old self
Oh,
said.
oh, I have a feeling,
uh
the gut instinct that breath work is kind of the same.
yes, absolutely. Actually, I was like anti-breath for quite some time. I did a yoga teacher training, and I remember just being like, oh, the half an hour of pranayama every day. And I'm not knocking it. I think pranayama is a beautiful practice, but
Mhm.
my monkey mind brain and high stress nervous system couldn't sit still and get to that deeper space. So I used to just be like, I don't know about this breath stuff. And so to go back a little bit further to what brought me here, I would say I've always been interested in holistic healing. I was considering becoming a naturopathic doctor, and then I decided that I wanted to travel, so that wasn't going to work. So I became a holistic nutritionist and wellness writer. So I did a bunch of just research and articles on holistic nutrition. And as I was doing that, I was also trying to heal myself. I was struggling with bulimia, alcohol dependency, and just living in a state of numbness and trying to solve my problems with planning my next trip. So if things started to feel too real, it's like, it's got to be this town. I got to go somewhere else. And I didn't realize that behind that was me numbing out on processed trauma from my childhood. And so I tried all kinds of healing modalities. For my whole adult life, I was just on this healing quest around the world. I got my yoga certification. I became Reiki certified. I became a holistic nutritionist. I did regular talk therapy as a participant. I did a week of ayahuasca in Colombia, and nothing helped. Like I would be able to abstain sometimes from the alcohol or the bulimia for a few months or up to a year, but it was always in the back of my mind every day, a bit of a struggle, a voice pulling me towards it. And so after the ayahuasca didn't work, I'm like, okay, clearly nothing's working. I've been trying now for 17 years and I still have these problems. And then a friend, when I was in Bali, was just like, you have to try this breath practice. It actually just made my bulimia go away. And I was like, what? Like, that is a huge thing to say because I've tried everything and nothing's worked. So I showed up a bit of a skeptic. So I was like, I'm not sure about these breathing things. Within 15 minutes, I was in that deep, non-ordinary state and I was brought back to my little inner child. And I just cried and cried and cried for love and physical attention and affirmation. I was a middle child. My parents did the best they could, and I didn't realize my whole life I was numbing out this grief of my little girl just wanting more love and affirmation, just more affection. And when I was doing this in the breath practice, there was not only the facilitator, but an assistant, and they both intermittently were offering me the supportive touch that my little inner child needed. And I would usually never cry out loud like this. I was having cathartic cries in a group of other breathers, but because I was in this other state, it didn't matter. And so, having finally felt these feelings that I'd been numbing out for my whole life, the end of that session, I already felt different. First day, I felt very tired because I released so much. But the next day, I woke up and I was like, whoa, like life's more colorful. I feel more confident. I don't care as much what people think. And I'm just going to do me. And I want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to bring this to the world. And so that was almost 10 years ago. I went into a training almost instantly, and I've been offering it ever since. And I've just seen it change so many people's lives. And it's just, I feel so grateful that I get to do this work. It's just such a beautiful, powerful medicine. And my favorite part is that it's our own medicine. I love the empowerment factor. I think we're always looking outside of ourselves for answers. And so it's really nice to sometimes just connect within.
Yeah. It's interesting listening to you speak about how, like, you knew there was something going on. And so I think so many of us that land in these helping professions, it's like we're trying to heal ourselves and we do all the things to kind of figure our best route.
Exactly. Oh,
Because when
yeah.
you were making your list, I'm like, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did
You
that.
did
Yeah.
too. Yes.
But there's something that you talked about, and it's interesting because I didn't think this is where this podcast episode was going to go today, but I don't know. There's something in my gut that says we need to talk about it, and I might rock some waves here a little bit, because I am not a trauma specialist. Yes, I have training in trauma, and I was a social worker at one point in my life, many, many, many years ago. But one thing that it just caught my attention when you're talking, and you mentioned the word trauma. In particular, I love the book that Valerie Rain wrote about the patriarchy stress disorder. And she talks
Ooh.
about trauma as like there's big T traumas, which is what I think most of our brains go to when we think of trauma. Like trauma has to be like something big that happened in your
Hmm.
childhood, or it has to be like this
A
big
life
thing.
or death accident or a
Yes.
major hurricane or something, life or
Yeah, like
death.
this
Yeah,
big imprinted moment, right? And trauma can also be little T traumas. It's the everyday
absolutely.
things that I think as women
Hmm.
we negotiate out of using the word trauma with it. We're just like, that's just life. Like, that's just part of my role. That's my job as a mother, right? Like, we don't necessarily identify that as trauma or that we see its impacts on us. And then, like, she talks about that there's the collective trauma, and then there's also obviously the patriarchal trauma that we carry from generations, like our ancestral trauma.
Hmm.
And so, one thing of just listening to you talk, though, about you sharing your experience, like immediately reflected back on my own childhood. I came from like a very loving, like, we're going to make this work all in kind of family. But yet, I still, as an adult, ended up with all these coping mechanisms that were very unhealthy.
Yeah.
And, as I reached 40, it definitely played into my burnout. And it wasn't a reflection of like my family life, but it was a reflection of this. Like when I look at what led me to burnout, there is this trail of breadcrumbs all the way back to a little girl who was like, I got to be perfect. I've got to
Mm.
show up for everyone. I've got to do all the things and I've got to know all the knowledge. Like there was this element of me as a child that still like carried through and became amplified in my burnout state. And I think it's interesting because, like I said, a lot of people, when they think of trauma, they're like, well, I didn't grow up in an abusive home, or I didn't, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, right? What we would
Yeah.
think
It's
might
not the
leave that
obvious in
imprint.
your face
Yeah.
types. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's these little things that as we get older, we learn how our body has learned from a very young age of how to continually adapt. And those adaptations that were easy at one point, but as we get older and our hormones shift or the load
Hmm.
becomes more, it's
Yeah.
really hard to navigate that stress.
Yeah.
And that plays into exactly what you're saying is like, we then are like, well, what's going to fix me, right? What's going to change this? And it's sometimes this bigger work that makes us go, oh, wait a minute. Like you're dropping us into this place where we can really reflect and be like, oh, that's what my work is.
Yes. So many. so many things there that you just said that I want to speak in, and I'm not going to remember them all. But firstly, the little t trauma is actually just far more insidious. And because it's not immediately recognized as something big and impactful, there's so much research saying that it actually can have much deeper or more lasting effects on our lives because it's often repeated as well versus, one big event, you're like, okay, I know that's impactful. I know why I'm acting how I am. But when it's one thing that seems small, but it's happening throughout your childhood or on a regular basis, and it's hard to identify, it can have such a deeper impact. And it really can change how we operate in the world and our belief systems and our coping mechanisms. And something I want to speak to here is the stress bucket. Do you know what the stress bucket?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really believe everything that's happened to us is like another drop in this bucket. Maybe we were born and we already have some drops in there because probably our birthing experience wasn't ideal, or maybe our time in the womb wasn't ideal. And then there's just more and more drops in the bucket. And so as we get older, a lot of us haven't found a way to work with the body, to work bottom up, to process these things, to start to release those drops in the bucket. So the bucket's just getting fuller and fuller and fuller. So by the time we're 40 or 50, the smallest drop can really overwhelm us and can create so much stress. The tiniest thing might put us into overwhelm and prevent us from sleeping. And then it's just a cascade of effects from there. And so this is something that I always say with conscious connected breath work is it's kind of like poking a hole at the bottom of the bucket so we can start to actually process these things that we've been holding on to, sometimes just for months or years, but often since our childhood or even our birth, and start to actually reduce the stress bucket so that our capacity becomes much greater and we can move through everyday life without going into overwhelm with a more balanced nervous system. And then from there, we can sleep better. And then even symptoms of perimenopause can be reduced because we're sleeping better and we have less stress, and it's all connected. And so I really believe connected breathwork is like a root cause practice. And that's something that I love so much about it.
Yeah. One thing that you talk about a lot is that so many women experience this emotional flatness in life, this low mood, this anxiety, this sense of disconnection from themselves. These are all things that when I read that, I was like, yeah, that was me when I hit 40. Like there was
Yeah.
this big shift that happened. And like, as a hormone health practitioner, I relate it all the way back to like how our hormones shift. But there is a lot going on there that some of those coping mechanisms just aren't working anymore. And I was wondering,
Mhm.
are you interested in maybe expanding on this, talking a little bit about like these experiences that women are experiencing, especially in midlife, of this flatness, of this disconnection to themselves?
Yeah, I think so often women are told, we're too much. Our emotions are too much. Don't feel that. Don't show that. Act normal. Don't express any of these emotions. So we actually just like continually, repeatedly told to shut these things down, dig
Mhm.
them deeper into the body, and the body's holding on to it. But we really can't pick and choose our feelings. So if we start to numb out the anger, the sadness, the rage, all the unspoken words that we haven't had the courage to speak, they just get trapped in our body. And then we also disconnect from the joy, from the love, from the peace, from the connection, from the bliss, because we can't pick and choose. So we almost just become flat because we've trying to shut down some of the feelings we were told weren't okay in the moment. And it just builds and builds and builds until we're just kind of moving through this flat space. Because so many times we haven't been able to properly express ourselves. So it all gets just stuck in the body. And then until we can start to work with the body and process those things and feel them, we have to feel them. The only way out is through. We
I don't
can't
like that.
reconnect to that joy. I know. But I once heard a quote that if you could just feel that feeling you've been running from your whole life for 1 minute, feel it fully, you could actually start to release that and create a real change. The thing is that we're always trying not to feel it fully. And this is
Hmm.
also why I love the connected breath work, because when the prefrontal cortex isn't managing us and telling us, no, we can't feel that now, then we finally, it just gets felt, whether or not we want to. And then at the end, we feel so much lighter and so much better for it. And it reconnects us. I think it reconnects us to our confidence. Like very often when we're working with non-ordinary states, we get a higher perspective and we can look down on our lives and just be really proud of how resilient we are, how much we've overcome, of the amazing humans that we are. And we start to get more perspective that these everyday things that we thought were failures just led us to where we are. We're already in alignment, and that it's safe to trust and to make choices that are based on what we want versus what everybody else wants. I think that's another part of the emotional flatness is women are just always told to give and to do what needs to be done for everybody else. And so often, women will come to my sessions and be like, I'm a giver, but I can't receive. And we need to be able
Mhm.
to receive and we need to be able to give back to ourselves as well.
And you find that breath work is teaching them that skill of how to receive?
Yeah, I mean, all on their own though. Like, I'm not guiding it. In this other state, you just get connected to these insights that you're meant to do. Sometimes I will give the cue, like, meet your oldest, wisest self. You on the last day of this earth, you that knows everything and has seen your whole life. What does your oldest, wisest self have to say to you? And they'll often get a message like, oh, you're doing great. Just be proud. Or like, don't worry about this. Or it's really time to follow that dream you've been putting off for 10 years. So it can work in that way. But just continually going, like several sessions, especially if someone does 4, 5, 6 sessions, it just happens all on its own. Like, first, it usually starts with physical tension because you have to work through those physical layers first. And then it goes into the emotional body. And then it just comes like downloads and insights and clarity and more direction and more, you know what? I am great. I don't care what anyone says. And I don't need that outside validation. I'm already enough. And these messages just come to us because we're inherently enough. We're all worthy. And we've been given these messages that we're not worthy, that we need outside validation or to achieve something, outside of ourselves to be good enough. And that's not the truth. So I really think the non-ordinary states allows us to remember our truth and our essence of who we are and just connect to our light and to our confidence.
Yeah. Thinking about receiving as well, I think that in order to receive, we have to move slow and we have to be able to
Mm,
pause. And so many of us women, we're not used to pausing. We're not
yeah.
used to slowing down to see what's in front of us. Like we're these little busybodies
Yeah.
that continually have to go. And we feel this because there's so much riding on us as, whether it's mothers, as it's the person who runs and manages the household, like whatever that might be your invisible load that you're carrying. Sometimes it gets really easy to use the excuse of I can't, right? Like there's not
Yeah.
enough time.
Hmm.
And that receiving, really the only way to receive is to be able to be grounded and present enough to either hear it, to see it, or to feel it. And so I think, not that I've experienced your breath work, but I'm assuming this is what it would feel like to be in that breath work experience, is that for the first time for maybe some women, they're kind of forced to sit there for an hour. Like they're
Yes.
in a pause state because they committed to it. It's not forced. There's not,
Uh-huh.
they said, I'm going to do this. And a
Uh-huh.
lot
But
of us
there's
women
that
are very
accountability
determined.
to staying still in that
Yeah.
container, right?
And
Yeah.
many of us women are like, well, we said we're going to do it, so we're going to do it now. And then we, we have to fulfill this whole hour. We're not okay with walking out. So then you
Hmm.
have to be in this pause moment. You have to be in this in between state, which
Yeah.
forces you to kind of choose which way you're going to go. Are you going to just unfold in all of it? Or are you going to continue to resist it?
Yeah. 1,000%. I like that perspective of just that pause state. Absolutely. That 1 hour to just be with yourself and your breath. Because mostly we're chasing our to-do list and our thousand things and we don't have
Mhm.
time is what we tell ourselves. And because of that, we're not giving ourselves the space to feel. And so I'll have women and men, come and say, I haven't cried in 5 years since I lost a loved one, or I haven't cried since I was a child and I was shamed for it, or I have never allowed myself to feel that anger because it hurt so much when it was directed at me and I've been bearing it my whole life. How did I suddenly feel it? You finally gave yourself the pause and the space to feel it. But
Yeah.
I do think in addition to that, there is a lot to say for the brain changes that happen in these states. And that's why I like it too, because you could meditate or do a breathing practice for many years before you can ever get to this state. It takes a lot of ongoing practice and training to get to that stillness. But when you get past it, like the first 10 or 15 minutes of this breathing practice, it just happens naturally. Like those feelings that you're running from just come up. If you actually follow the technique, it creates the perfect environment in your brain for these things finally to come up for processing and for release.
Well, I think that's one thing that we're learning about the nervous system, because like you're hearing about the nervous system more and more on
Yeah,
social media, or it's like the catchphrase right now.
it is.
But I think what's so beautiful about people starting to get curious about nervous system work, whatever modality you're using for that, is that it's getting you to bring yourself out of your body and
Mm.
into these other, like you're saying, brain states, right? Like we have spent so much time of thinking about wellness through the physical body. Like I have to work out in such a way so that I gain muscle, so that I have good heart health and good bone health. And like we think of so much of like us having to do in order to be able to be well. And the
Yeah.
one thing with the nervous system is like, and it's what trips people up is sometimes it's so simple. Like
Just
it's
do less.
breathing. It's
Yeah.
sometimes it's the simplest things, but it makes us feel like, well, how can that actually work? And it's
Yeah.
because it's actually using a different way of perceiving health and wellness.
Yeah. I mean, we would never go weeks without showering, but we go years without taking care of our emotional wellness, or in our mental wellness. And so that's all a part of it is giving ourselves, just like
Mhm.
we do the physical body, giving our minds and our emotions a chance as well to be
Yeah.
supported and to feel and to express.
Yeah. And I think sometimes with things being so new, like not that the brain is new, but I think so many people thought it was like this thing that never changes. Like it develops and it's like it's not malleable. And now
Uh-huh.
we're knowing through so much science over the last, I don't know if it's 10 or 20 years now, but it's starting to really emerge now of like, no, actually, the brain is very malleable and it has an experience. It can change, it can grow, or not grow, but it
Yes.
can change. And so,
Neuroplasticity. Yeah.
yeah. And I think for some of us, like even though it's 20 years doesn't seem like new technology, but 20 years in the realm of teaching people to see their body in a different way, it feels too new agey sometimes. And it's a hard buy-in sometimes, but I think that there is so
hmm
much power in realizing like our lived experience that we're experiencing right now, we can feel different. There is an opportunity for us to experience this situation differently if we have the
Yes.
right tools to change the perception, which comes through the neuroplasticity of the brain.
Yeah, 1,000%. I think that's just such a positive message that people need to realize. You're not stuck in how your body feels or how your emotions feel. There is the possibility for change. It's a very real possibility. The brain's always looking to recreate itself. We need to give itself the conditions for it to happen.
Hmm. Do you find that men struggle with that more than women?
In the breathwork sessions or in life?
Let's say both. I just think of
The
my husband, and he's always like, that's not possible. And I'm always like, there's always possibility.
You know, in life, yes, I do agree. They're much more closed off to these possibilities. But something I love about the connected breath work, I especially love it when like women bring their husbands or, a reluctant friend to my sessions who are like, nah, this is woo stuff. It's woo woo. Nothing's gonna happen for me. Because it's actually the skeptics that end up becoming the biggest believers, and they're the ones that need it the most because they've never done any kind of emotional or mental
Yeah.
well-being work. So they have a whole lifetime of stuff to process. And at the end, they'll just be like, how the heck did you make me cry? I haven't done that since I was 3. And I'm like, I didn't do that. That was all you. That was the breathing pattern. And they just like, they look like lighter beings at the end of it because they finally allow themselves to feel something that they've been suppressing their whole life. And so, yeah, I think in general, yes, men may be more closed off to it, but in the breath, it's an equal party for everybody.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. One thing I want to touch on before we run out of time for sure today is to talk about this concept that you share about that not all stress is bad, that
Mhm.
that there is some stress that is beneficial. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, I think that people just automatically think stress, bad, sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, bad. But sympathetic nervous system is also our motivation. If we don't ever have any sympathetic activation, we don't really have excitement or, the motivation to get off the couch and go and do something or pursue a goal. We need that. And if you think about working out, this is positive stress. It's called eustress. This is the term for positive stress. Something that's mentally challenging for you, maybe the nerves of going and giving a speech, but then actually achieving the speech. This is eustress. So there is very positive stress. And I think that neither is good or bad. People think sympathetic nervous system bad, parasympathetic nervous system good, but it can go the opposite direction. Parasympathetic nervous system can also become shut down and burnout and disassociation. The ideal thing is to be able to go between the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system according to what's actually happening in your daily life versus just being primarily stuck in one or the other. And in conscious connected breath work, as well as, like I said, with working out or things that are mentally challenging and activating, that's eustress. And it's positive stress that's actually helping us to adapt and grow. When you do, there's also functional breathing practices where there's breath holds, and that creates positive eustress. And that's actually, there's studies showing that it's good for your immune system and it's good for your overall energy levels. So yeah, I just want people to be aware that not all stress is bad, and that if we had no stress, we would probably just be couch potatoes and never leaving our houses because we'd have none of that motivating energy.
I'm curious with you stress if like why it lands in the body differently. Because you're right. Like the example that you give of the presentation that really landed for me. Like there is so much anxiousness before I present, but then when I'm done, there's like this big dopamine rush.
Yes,
there's this big
exactly.
payoff for it. And
Uh-huh.
I wonder what happens in the brain because the body doesn't know the story. The body just knows the sensation.
Mm-hmm.
So the stress of presenting versus the stress of your child forgot its lunch and you're already halfway to work and now you have to like renegotiate your whole schedule for the morning. Like, how does the body know? How does the body change the payout in the end of knowing the reward? I don't know. I don't know how to put this in
Yeah, I
words.
think I
I
know
know what
your
I'm
question.
asking.
And I don't know the exact brain answer to that, but I do know there's a big empowerment factor. So even if going on riding a roller coaster, that's youth stress, or traveling, going to a new place, the unknowns in there. But the common factor with youth stress, whether it's a speech or traveling or whatever, is you're choosing to do it. When somebody hits your car, you're not choosing that. When your child gets hurt, you're not choosing that. So there's no empowerment, there's no agency. And there's even a sense of safety because you've chosen it. So I really think just like
Mhm.
with all trauma work, eustress kind of falls in that branch too, that it's the empowerment part, the choice, the agency in it. And then afterwards there's an achievement. It's like, yeah, I faced that fear and I did it anyways. So that's where the dopamine comes in and that's where the reward comes. Whereas if something happens to you, you feel more like, oh, I was a victim of that. And then you don't get that
Yeah.
dopamine reward.
Yeah. My brain is so processing this right now because I'm like, is there a way for me to choose these non-choice states into choice states?
I mean, if you reflect on them and think about like how you can make lemonade out of the lemon, like, oh, you know what, that did teach me. And now moving forward, I'm going to be better at this, like that boundary or whatever it is. You could kind of turn it around that way.
Well, and I sometimes think too that like it's hard to turn it around when it's not your choice, when you are so over flooded and you haven't
Yeah.
had tools or resources to get you out of those states. So
Yeah.
like thinking like we were talking about the child forgetting their lunch and then you're like in this panic mode because you didn't choose that of being like able to feel like you've had enough resources for that in that moment of being able to take a breath and go, wait a minute, what a gift that I have this flexibility and that my child feels safe enough to call me to let me know this versus starving. Like you could look at it from so many different angles
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
make it a choice state of like, oh my God, like, yes, this changes my day a bit, but this is so great that all these positives are in this negative experience.
Yeah.
But I think as women, we are so flooded that it's
Hmm.
just like another thing on the to-do.
Your stress bucket's already full. So that drop doesn't, you're not going to your resource at that point. Instead, you're just going into overwhelm. But I
Yeah.
do think there's so much to be said for what you're saying, changing the perspective on it and taking that optimistic perspective. I often say, like, change your story, change your life. And that can apply to any story. It doesn't have to be your larger life story, but like looking back at all the things that were challenging or even traumatic and changing the perspective on it. Like, oh, you know what? That really led to me going into this practice and then becoming this and then meeting this person and seeing all the beautiful things that came from it, even if it was challenging or painful. And if we can do it with our everyday stories too, like you said, like, you know what, it's just so great that my child feels safe enough to reach out to me, that I even have the resources to give them their lunch, that I have this beautiful child. But I think that this is a point that I want to bring in too. Yes, I'm such a big believer in the conscious connected breath work because it does reduce that stress load. But another simple thing you can do, because you mentioned resources, and you will have resistance to this, at least most people do it at the beginning, is to try your best to commit to a daily breath practice of 5 minutes, just a down regulating one, something like soft breaths deep into the belly. And if you make the exhale longer than the inhale, that really helps to reduce your stress load. The first few weeks, like any habit, like trying to go to the gym, you're going to give yourself a million reasons not to do it. I have this in my training. So I have all my students do it and they share what worked for them in the end. Some of my students are doing it while they're waiting in the car to pick up their kids. So if that's what you have to
Mhm.
do, great. Make it work for you. Maybe you do it in the shower. Maybe you do it before you go to bed. Just 5 minutes a day. After the first 3 weeks, it's going to become more of a habit. And by 2 or 3 months, your overall stress bucket will be lower. You will have more resources so that you don't get overwhelmed in your everyday life. And then you'll be like, oh, actually, I don't even want to stop because I'm noticing how it's really trickled out into my ability to remain calm and present and to enjoy my day more because I'm not so overwhelmed. It really can make a big difference, just that 5 minutes a day.
Isn't it interesting how as humans that 5 minute practice, there's so much resistance to it, but yeah, like we
Yeah.
spend 5 minutes doing so many other ridiculous things
Oh
that
my
it's like
God. Yeah. Like people will doom scroll for hours or watch Netflix or whatever, but
the 5 minute, you
yeah.
want me to do 5 minutes?
Five.
What?
I know. I
It's
know. It's
impossible.
so true. But I also say that the ego, it's not inherently bad. It thinks that it's keeping us safe by keeping everything the same. The ego is actually scared of change. So I think behind that resistance we have to these 5 minute practices or daily practices is a little bit of the ego's fear, like, oh shit, something might shift here. And it doesn't know positive versus negative. It's just like change, bad, scary. Keep it the
Yeah.
same. So it tries to give you all the reasons not to do it. And that's why the first 3 weeks it takes extra commitment. Maybe get a buddy who you check in with each other and keep each other accountable. Did you do your 5 minutes today? Yes, I did. Did you? No, but I'm going to get back on it tomorrow. Find a way to do it until it becomes a habit. And then, like I said, all of my students by the end of the training, they're like, I don't want to stop now. So you will get to that point where you'll notice the benefits. And it can be any rest and digest breathing practice. So whether it's just a slow double exhale or the box breath or coherence breathing, whatever works for you. But that 5 minutes of breath awareness and slowing the breath can make such a difference in your nervous system load.
Yeah. One thing I love about the breath is it is this automatic thing that happens. Like
Yes.
we don't have to think about doing it. It is automatically gonna, if we are like get distracted, our body is still like, we gotta breathe. We'll just do it without her even being aware of it because our whole
Hmm.
body needs it. But there is such beauty in thinking about that we're taking this thing that's automatic and we are dropping awareness into it and
Yeah.
intentionally doing it for a reason. And I
Yeah.
think that is such like a beautiful undertone to why breath work can be so empowering is that you don't have to do it. Your body's still going to do it. But when you
Exactly.
choose to do it, like you're choosing for a reason, for a purpose.
1,000%. It's the only autonomic process in our body that we also consciously can control. And it also is our
Mhm.
direct pathway to our nervous system. So it's the only way we can consciously control our nervous system. We can't just tell ourselves when we're in high stress state, hey, stop feeling that. You're going to feel even worse. But
Yeah.
if you consciously soften your breath, bring it into the belly instead of the chest and slow it down, it will start to give a feedback loop to your nervous system. Hey, we're safe, and your nervous system will start to calm down and relax. And it's our direct access to our nervous system, which is beautiful. There's nothing else that can consciously control it.
That's so great. As we wrap up, let's talk a little bit about the work that you do and about how people can work with you because you have a training, but I'm guessing you
Hmm.
also do facilitated sessions as well. So what are
Yeah.
all the ways that people can get more
Yeah.
involved with this work?
So I do online sessions because I'm primarily based in Salida, Mexico, as well as Toronto, Ontario. So if you're not in those places, online sessions. I also do 3 retreats a year, 8-day retreats. We do 6 full-length conscious connected breathwork sessions, and then we round out the experience with things like sound baths and some gentle yin style yoga, workshops, daily check-in circles, and those are really, really beautiful, just deep dives into working through all the stuff we've been carrying our whole life, but in a really beautiful, supportive container. The breathwork facilitator training is an international certification. It's trauma informed and it's certified by the only regulating body that we have right now for connected breathwork, which is called the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance. So if you want to try conscious connected breathwork in person, if you go on the GPBA, which is the acronym for its website, you'll be able to see if there's any practitioners in your neighborhood offering it. And there are more and more around the world offering it now. So that's a really good way. And if anyone I'm also just a researcher and writer by nature. So if anyone wants to know more about the science behind breath, read all of the different benefits and uses. my website, Unity Breathwork, is just a wealth of information. And sometimes I also go on Instagram and post some new information on there as well at Unity Breathwork. So those are my offerings. Occasionally, a few times a year, I also offer free online group sessions for the whole world. So if you get onto my mailing list, you'll be notified of my next one. It will probably be in September, October.
Wow, that's so great. Thank you so much. And those links I will provide in the show notes below for anyone that's listening and that's like, I didn't write that down quick enough. Don't
Yeah,
worry, it's in the show
it was a lot of
notes.
information all at once. So thank you.
But I want to thank you. This was such a great conversation. I really loved it, and I loved the perspective that you brought to the nervous system and to the experience that so many of us women are facing, and how we can reframe it and how we have resources and tools to really help support us. So thank you so much, Megan, for being here on the
Thank
podcast today and
you.
sharing your wisdom.
It was such an honor and actually just so much fun chatting with you. So thank you.
If you're sitting here thinking, okay, but which hormone is actually causing my chaos? I've got you. Head to the show notes and grab my free quiz. What hormone is running the show? It's your first step to understanding where your body might need some extra support. And honestly, it's kind of eye-opening. Link is in the show notes. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Until next time, remember, you deserve to feel good in your body, and together we will figure it out.